Om Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjali Ranatosmi. I prostrate with folded hands before Patanjali, who benefited mankind by delivering yoga for mind, grammar for speech, and by removing impurities of body through medicine. So, in the last class, we were in the section of the first chapter where various preliminary practices for cleansing the mind has been discussed. We have already studied the four attitudes which has been spoken of to be practiced in four different situations in life. We have practiced some basic breathing exercise, pranayama, to calm down the mind. And then we ensured when we started our study of the 35th Sutra of the first chapter, which is quite interesting, which speaks of specific meditation where the focus has to be done on particular part of your body, and that will entail in some super sensuous perceptions. And now you may say how it is going to help us to calm down the mind. Yes, there is a psychology behind it. That once you have those supersensual perceptions, by focusing your mind on particular part of the body, then a conviction comes that this the word prapancha means the phenomenon. This word is a very significant word. Prapancha, prakrishta rupena pancha. What is this? That this world is nothing but what we see through the five senses. Our eyes, our ears, our nose, our taste, the tongue, and skin, the touch. These are the five senses through which we sense the world. Our world is nothing apart from these five senses. And what we see outside, it gives us a sense of tangible reality. And with a sense of tangible reality, our emotions gets linked with it. The moment our emotions gets linked with it, we become afflictive. The things which we like, if somehow there is a separation, we are very sorrow. We are very miserable for it. If there is something which I don't like and I have to be in association with it, it gives me constant suffering. So all these afflictions come into being when our emotions gets linked with all those perceptions which we take to be real. Now, when through meditation on the particular part of your body, we develop that supersensuous sensation, that immediately the conviction comes. It's not just intellectual understanding. Out of realization, the conviction comes that what I see outside most probably is not there outside as I see it. There is something, but what it is, I don't know. What I see is actually the projection of the mind. And it's a very wonderful fact. Even the science will say you that what I see with the five senses is nothing but the projection of the mind. Let us go to that discussion to understand that what all we see is a projection of mind. When I see a flower, a red rose flower, I have the idea that the flower is red. But science will say you that there is no color outside. When the light falls on the flower, a particular wavelength of the light is reflected back, all are absorbed, other wavelengths are absorbed. The wavelength that is reflected has no color. The wavelengths that has been absorbed has no color. They are just particular state of vibration in particular frequency. That much. There is no color in it. Now the wavelength which is reflected back, it comes and strikes your eyes, it strikes your retina, and then the optical nerve which is behind your retina. There it gets converted into nervous current. It is something like nerve current. Optical nerve converts it into nerve current. Very interesting. The light, the colors which I am seeing outside is in no way entering your brain. The light stops, that light which has no color, its function stops in your eyes. After that, it is getting converted into particular nerve currents, which is something like electric current of particular frequency, of particular wavelength. That goes and strikes the color, so-called, it's not color perception center, actually the color projection center. So it actually goes and strikes the color center in your brain. The moment it reaches the color center, the color is actually projected from that center. It moves out, envelops the so-called object, whether it's what it is, we don't know. And then I feel, oh, the flower is red. So with this common example, with this one simple example, you will understand all the five senses are doing the same thing. They are not actually seeing the thing as it is outside. They are more like a projector, a wonderful projector. The human projectors, through science what we got, through technology what we got, is a very poor imitation of the human mind as a projector. The projector which we got through the technology can project only light and sound. And nowadays, the sound is surrounding sound. To a certain extent, we get the 3D projections. And we are so proud. We forget that our mind does the job in a much better way by projecting all the five perceptions. The touch, the taste, the smell, along with sight and sound. Such a wonderful projector it is projecting. All this prapancha, these five senses getting mixed up to create this world of reality. This so-called the virtual world gives us a sensation it is real. Now, if through particular meditation, I find that all those perceptions as such has nothing to do with the substantial reality outside. Everything is hollow as such. It is we who give the color, sight, taste. It is just a mere framework on which we are imposing. Now it's the time for Durga Puja. If you go in West Bengal, Calcutta, where Durga Puja, is one of the most important festival there. Now, before Durga Puja, when they start preparing the idol with the clay, they will with some hay, they make the basic structure on which they will put the clay. So what the world is giving us is just like that framework, the basic structure. The clay, the color, all those sight, sound, taste, is we who are projecting on that framework. Now, when you realize, as now we know it intellectually, that makes no difference. We find our attraction to the world remains undiminished because it's just a mere intellectual conviction. If it was a realization, the thing would have been different. Immediately a detachment will come. How the difference between realization and intellectual conviction, you will understand. Let us take the example of a schizophrenic patient. The abnormalities of the mind are the best way to study the mind. Now, in schizophrenic patient, what happens? Very interesting thing happens. The external world is there out, which we don't know what it is, we project to say it is a reality. Very interesting. What I say as red, you also see it as red. So it is called consensus reality. We all consent to it. That yes, what I see, the same thing you also see. Now, it could have been so, if it could have been such that the wavelength which is interpreted as red by me, if your mind was a bit differently constituted, you could have interpreted it as green, because it's all matter of programming of the mind. If it was a bit different, it could have been interpreted as green, and then there would have been no consensus reality where we cannot consent with each other. There would have been chaos. Now, what's the difference between a schizophrenic patient and the so-called normal patient and normal person? A schizophrenic person is projecting something which others are not projecting. So it's a question of minority. It's here we find in a democracy the who the means gets the majority of the vote wins. They become the one who is going to run the government. Here also it's a question of majority. It's a question, what is the difference between normal and abnormal? We all are hallucinating actually. But as we are all hallucinating in the same manner, we say it is okay, it is real. One who is hallucinating a bit differently, we say he or she is abnormal. So you will understand it's a wonderful thing. Even if you go to the language of the modern medical science, you will find very interesting. They never use the word abnormal. They say such and such person is bit different. Let's see, the word is so interesting. It's a bit different. And that difference has made all the so-called apparent abnormalities, because such and such person is now a minority, belongs to the minority. Others, his reality or her reality is in no way conforming to the consensus reality which we all are seeing in common. And that's why we say such and such person is abnormal. And now why we are saying the two things. One thing, the person who is seeing a bit different from others, his or her behavior pattern changes. Where you see nothing, that person may say something and laugh and speak and just try to embrace, and you may say, oh, he has gone mad or she has gone mad. Because the thing which he or she is seeing is so real to that person, his behavior pattern automatically changes. So that's why you will find that what we were saying is very important, that what I intellectually conceive has no meaning. What I realize, that has a tangible meaning for me. For a schizophrenic person, however you may say, what you're seeing is hallucination, you will find it is almost impossible to make that person believe, because it's so tangible. And almost there is no treatment for it. Yes, nowadays there is a difference between this psychedelic drugs and psychological counseling. In counseling, they won't go for the drugs, but they will counsel such type of patient. What's the counseling for such type of patient? That what you are first there, the doctor will make that person aware. The psychologist will make that person aware that what you are seeing is not agreeable to others. They are not seeing it. So that's why this confusion is created, and it becomes almost impossible for you to interact with the world. Now you have the right to act as a normal person, responsible person. So what's the way out? The things which you see, which others are not seeing, you will come to know that these are the things, these particular patterns of visualization, which is so real to me. Why it is real? Because the mind is projecting. All what we see is the projection of the mind. It is so tangibly real, but it is not the consensus reality. It's not seen by others. So I will try to be indifferent to it. Throughout my life, if I'm schizophrenic, it is almost impossible to get rid of all those visualizations. They will be there, but we have to learn to be indifferent to them. So now it has come to this sutra, you will understand. When through meditation on particular part of the body, you find wonderful smell, that supernormal, supernatural touch, smell, sight, all these are coming. Now it's a matter of conviction. What's the conviction? That, oh, this what this world I think as real is actually the projection of the mind. And you found previously that when anything is a conviction because of realization, it changes your behavior. You need not have to mentally counsel yourself. It automatically changes your behavior. So all through this type of practice, when you start getting those supernatural touch, smell, sight, etc., immediately that realization changes your behavioral pattern by cutting off the link of emotion with your perceptions. The link gets cut off. The dispassion, that dispassionate nature becomes something spontaneous. And once the more and more you are dispassionate, the more calm you are. It is our passions, it is our strong likings, strong desires that is constantly agitating my mind. If that dispassion comes, knowing it very for sure that what I see is the projection of the mind is just playing tricks with me, it is fooling me, the emotion gets cut off. As in the last class, we were saying that for a psychopath, that's the thing. What happens? That with the perception, the emotion is always linked. For a psychopath, suddenly one morning when the symptoms have started developing, there's a person may get up, see his or her mother and say, "You look like my mother, but you're not my mother." What has happened? That because of some disease, the emotion center has got disjoined from the perception center. So it's looking like mother, but as the emotion is not involved, somehow that person feels is not my mother. It is impersonating as my mother, but it's not my mother. So the same thing which happens unconsciously because of some abnormality in a psychopath, when it is happening consciously, the effect is same, but instead of making you totally cut off from the world, it actually makes you dispassionate. And now you can relate to the world in an unbiased manner. We may say that when we become dispassionate, we cannot love. Actually, the real love comes when we are dispassionate because the bias falls off. We won't have the biases then. There's a passion makes us biased. The bias falls off. Then the love becomes unconditional, equal for all. It becomes something universal. And that's the real love. So that comes from that dispassion. That though we are empathetic, but at the same time, that we find that we are not getting emotionally disturbed by the happenings of life. And then only you can really become an effective person, productive person. You may say, without emotion, how can I work? You will find a very interesting thing that it is our emotions which we think is something called love is actually not the real love. It actually hinders our so-called loving relationship. When some, let God forbid, when of my relative, very close relative, is admitted in the hospital in the ICU, who is the first person not to be allowed to be there? It's me. Because love is not emotion. My emotion, that turmoil which will I have because of my emotion, if I'm in presence of that person, my emotion will be the cause of disturbance, discouragement for my near and dear one. So now you will understand that emotion and love never goes together. My emotion actually disrupts the real love. I was supposed to be calm, composed at that moment of time to really be effective in helping others. So even you will find that the most efficient doctor, highly skilled surgeon, When it comes that he or she has to operate on his own relative, they never do it. In spite of all the skills, they will always desist from that because they know their emotion comes to the picture, and then the skills will be obscured. He cannot work with that unbiased, calm mentality. So now you will understand that the love which we think is a product of emotion is totally a misunderstanding. The real love can come, the real compassion come only from that calmness. And that calmness which comes from that conscious disjoining of the emotion from the other centers. And that happens when I have practiced a particular type of meditation to develop some supersensuous perception to give me the conviction that these perceptions, or like any other perceptions, if this perception has come without the contact with the external objects, all the perceptions are basically of that nature. And the sense of reality which I have in the world, that starts getting uh, evaporized, sublimated, and you get more and more calm and tranquil. So, just to summarize, read the sutra once more, and then we will continue with the next sutra. What's that? Vishayavati va prabritti utpanna manasa sthiti nibandhini. So this prabritti here doesn't mean attachment. Here means prakrishta vritti is pravritti. It's a type of vritti which is excellent, superlative, which is what's that that is extraordinary vritti? What is the special vritti? Which is Vishayavati. Means without coming in contact with the Vishaya, it is full of the perceptions of the Vishaya. That's the Vishayavati. So this pravrittis, when it comes, then it becomes the result of Manasa Sthiti Nibandhini. It helps to calm down. Sthiti means to settle down the mind. It helps to settle down the mind, calm down the mind by making it more and more dispassionate. So that was the 35th sutra. So there are few more sutras which speaks of the process of cleansing the mind. We will now go back to the share screening for those sutras, for referring those sutras, and continue with our discussion. So this was the sutra which we studied, that what just in the commentary it was mentioned. The sutra is very general. In the commentary, they gave a few examples that what all extraordinary sensory perceptions develop by focusing on particular type of body. If you have to do perseveringly, it doesn't take much time. If one is sincere, within few days or weeks, this type of perceptions come, which gives the conviction that this spiritual journey, whatever has been spoken of, is true, because at the initial you get all these supersensory perceptions, which gives the validity of the Yoga Shastra, and it makes your renunciation firm, detachment firm. So if you meditate on the tip of the nose, you get supersensory smell. Tip of the tongue, you get supersensory taste. Means on the tongue which is touching your teeth, that is the tip of the tongue. The middle of the tongue, that portion, if you meditate, you get supersensory touch. Root of the tongue, which is near the vocal cord, there, if you meditate, you get supersensory sound. And if you meditate on the palate, you get supersensory sight. So all the five perceptions can be generated by you without as such coming in contact with the objects, giving you the conviction that all the perceptions are actually from within to without, not from outside to inside. It's from inside to outside. And very interesting, the Vedanta, this is the thing, is speaking of thousands of years back. In Vedanta, the idea is the conscious principle, your Atman, when comes in association with the mind, it projects out through the senses to remove the ajnana, the ignorance, and give the knowledge of that object. When I read it for the first time, I thought, what a queer idea. Consciousness coming out through your mind, through the mind, through the senses, it is coming out, enveloping the object to remove its ignorance, to give its meaning. It made no sense. But the science helps us to understand Vedanta. As we gradually understand the science behind perception, we find what a wonderful thing yoga and Vedanta is speaking of. And this sutra indicates to that. Now let's go to the next sutra. This is also a very interesting sutra. These all sutras, sometimes you will find various commentaries giving various square meanings. But if you go to the words, you will find wonderful meaning coming out. We will try to exactly go to the words and try to find out what it is speaking of. Vishoka va jyotis mati. That stability of the mind can be produced by what? Or. Va means or. So there are so many methods already has been spoken of. This is another method. So this va means another, or by awareness which is free from sorrow and is illumined. Vishoka Jatispati. Initially, it may make no sense. That which is illumined and which is free of sorrow. In most of the commentary, they will say meditate on the heart, where the one uh, sage or saint is as if sitting, or some incarnation, divine incarnation is sitting, who is beyond all sorrow, Vishoka. And think of him as something luminous. He is illuminating your heart. Yes, that is a process of meditation. But uh, behind that process of meditation, is there any other hidden meaning which this sutra is speaking of? So that instead of specifying a particular type of meditation to mean this sutra, actually any type of meditation can be interpreted by this sutra. Any type of meditation, not only mere visualization, but even mindfulness. In this world, there are so many types of meditation. But if you just boil down all the meditation, at last it can be boiled down only to two types of meditation. One is mindfulness and the other is focus. The mindfulness means I am not meditating on a particular object. Dispassionately, I am looking at my own mind. I am not reacting. I am just not avoiding. I am not trying to run away. I am seeing it. But at the same time, I am not getting involved with it. So there is no question of focus, just to go and observe your mind dispassionately without reacting to your feelings and emotions. That is one type. And another is focus. That focus can be varied. It can be focused on certain visualization, as we spoke of now, that some uh, form of divinity sitting in your heart, it's illumined, it's beyond all sorrow. That can also be done. But if I interpret as that some illumined being is sitting in my heart, or illumined object is sitting in my heart, an illumined lotus is there in my heart, and it is beyond all sorrow, the mindfulness aspect is not taken care of. So let us try to interpret the sutra in such a way that all sorts of meditation can be interpreted by this sutra. So what is this sutra speaking of? Now let us take the mindfulness. In mindfulness, when you are focused at the present, being fully aware of the feelings and emotions, but not reacting to them. So this practice will enable you to get rid of all afflictions by not getting identified with them. To be a bit more specific, that how actually we can practice mindfulness. In some other context, we spoke of this specific way of practicing mindfulness. In the modern psychology, they speak of RAIN acronym, RAIN, RAIN acronym. We will come to it later. First, let us take any particular emotion. So say anger, that because of some reason, some incident which happened in my workplace, I developed some anger. most probably because of some misbehavior with my boss. My boss misbehaved with me, or some colleague misbehaved with me. And that anger grew within me. When I came back, when I am retiring at my own residence, at my home, suddenly that anger springs in my mind. So instead of trying to get rid of it by trying to by running away from it, by turning off on the TV or trying to engage in something else, that's how we generally try to get rid of it. What in mindfulness we are actually asked to do? Don't run away from it. Run into it. Go and start observing the anger. Now, how to stop the reaction? You will find all the reaction actually is related to past or future. It has nothing to do with the present. That when I'm angry, I'm constantly nurturing that anger with the past. How? I'm thinking of the incident that happened. That is nurturing. And future also nurtures it. How? That I am planning that today the colleague misbehaved with me. He has used such and such words. What I am going to say him or her tomorrow. So you are planning for the future, anticipating. That nurtures your anger. If you run into anger and just say, oh, anger, I want to stay with you, but I won't allow the past and the future to nourish you. I will cut off. I will just, you stay. There is no harm. I'm quite happy with you. I want to stay with you. I don't run away from you. You will find the moment with full awareness. All the reaction comes from that past and the future. As you're disjoining from that, you're trying to focus in the present. You will find a wonderful thing. The anger is gradually vanishing. Just like camphor, it is sublimating. It's no more there. So this has been spoken of as RAIN acronym. R stands for recognize. Don't run away. Yes, an emotion is there. What's that emotion? Anger. Yes, I recognize. A stands for acceptance. I accept it. Okay, quite good. I will stay with you. I'm not running away from you. I stands for investigation. That when you investigate the nature of any emotion, you will find that reaction only comes when you are nurturing it with the past and with the future. Otherwise, it simply supplements. So once you investigate, now you negate. N stands for negating. That I don't allow the past or the future to nurture it. N means negate, N means constant noticing. I'm constantly noticing it. I'm not allowing that and negating it, noticing it and negating it. And when you do that, the emotion stays with you, but you have transcended. What you have transcended? That it's no more affects you. You can totally get disidentified from it. As a result, what happens? To take another example, in meditation it happens. I will give you a very nice meditation. It's a real meditation. One Buddhist monk is speaking of it. That he sat for meditation and he was practicing mindfulness. And he was asked not to get up from the seat for hours together, for 2 hours. And as he was not habituated to meditate that long, the knees started aching. Now, the instructor has told that when the knees ache, don't move it. That will be reaction. Just concentrate on that pain. That the pain is there. If someone else has a pain, do you have reaction? No. So think this pain is also like an object. It objectify it. Don't make it a subject that it is my pain. The pain is there. I am just observing it. What happens, very interesting. He says that when one day I understood that I have succeeded in transcending that pain. Wow. So when I was observing the pain, suddenly one bird chirped. And to me, both were the same. The chirping of the bird was also something, an object. The pain was also an object. The ego has fallen off, that this is my pain, or this is the bird which is something apart from me. Both appeared to be the same object. So, what happens? It's not that you are using meditation to create an anesthetic effect, that there won't be any pain. Pain is there, but you don't react to it. Not only that, you have objectified it, you have detached your ego from it to transcend it. So, what happens? You're fully aware. In this type of meditation, what happens when someone says that you go beyond pain, pleasure, sorrow? The immediate reaction is, oh, by meditation, you become something like a veggie. No, it's just the opposite. When you are becoming Vishoka, you're transcending the suffering. It is not at the cost of your awareness. It is not anesthetic. It is not anesthetic that you are just totally forgetting the pain. That pain, that feeling is fully there. You are realizing that, yes, the pain is there, but you have disjoined yourself. So your awareness is in no way, what you say, that has been uh, under the effect of anesthesia, that you are as if sedated. There is no sedation. It is not sedation. You have got rid of your sorrow by being fully aware of it. That awareness has been spoken of as jyoti, illumination. That your mind is fully aware, but you have transcended the sorrow by just objectifying, by totally disjoining yourself from all the pains and pleasures of life. We can do that. It's a gradual practice. So this Vishoka Jyotismati, now we will understand, speaks of the practice of mindfulness. And of course, the visualization process also can yield the same result. If I can think of a lotus in my heart, fully illumined, that's my real nature, which is totally separate from the body. As in the word of Ramakrishna, when spiritual illumination dawns in, then what happens? The interesting thing happens is you become like a ripened coconut. He's saying that a person who is attached is like an unripe coconut, where the shell and the kernel is intermingled. You cannot separate them. They're all conjoined. When the coconut gets ripened, the shell and the kernel get separated. If you shake it, you can find something is making noise inside. The shell has got totally separated from the kernel. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, is like a realized soul is like a ripened coconut, where that feeling that the soul, the within me is something totally disjoined, separate from the body. And it's not that you are not aware of the pain. The pain's awareness is there. It is not that you have anesthetized yourself or sedated yourself. You're fully aware. Your awareness is extremely keen, but it has transcended by getting disjoined from all the so-called feelings. So that's, we will find very interesting that when Sri Ramakrishna in his last days, suffering from cancer, that was a in those days there was no treatment. The cancer was in a very advanced stage. His throat cancer, nothing he could eat. Whatever he will eat, more than half of the food will just be vomited out, because the cancer got so much lacerated. He was just somehow whispered, couldn't talk properly. But someone if asks that, sir, how are you? In Bengali, he will just spell out a couplet. Shorir tar dukkho jane, mon tumi anande thak. The body knows its suffering. O mind, remain at peace. And it was something which was totally reflected in his demeanor, in his appearance. That one day, one of the young disciple, he was just in his teens. He came and asked Ramakrishna, how are you? He told, oh, I am suffering. That the young boy immediately told, but it seems that you are full of bliss, but you are saying you are suffering. And immediately Ramakrishna had a hearty laugh and told, that rascal has caught me. Means I have been, just like the way the detective finds out your real intention, he has actually found out the real uh, incident, the real fact behind this apparent suffering. That rascal has caught me. That's what he's saying. Shala dhore feleche. In Bengali, he's saying. So that's the idea, that you have totally disjoined. It's not that you are not aware of the suffering. You have got rid of the suffering. It's there. Shorir tar dukho jane. The body knows it's suffering. Mon tumi anand thako. The mind is at bliss by being totally disjoined. And that is the idea of Vishoka va Jyotismati. So we can practice either by mindfulness or even by some visualization, where we visualize the one who is residing in my heart is totally disjoined from the psychophysical existence. It has nothing to do with it. It is just the witness. That also, that visualization can also take you to that state of Vishoka Jyotismati as well as the mindful awareness. Both. So now you will find that if you don't specify this sutra with a particular type of visualization, you can actually include all sorts of meditation to interpret this sutra. And once we become an adept in this type of meditation, either by mindfulness or by visualization, focused visualization, we can transcend the suffering, all the small sufferings. Little fever at present disturbs me, little headache disturbs me. So I can easily get rid of them, and I can maintain the calmness of my mind in spite of all those causes of turmoils, which is really going to disturb me if I am constantly identified with them. So unless I can calm down my mind a little, how can I think of further progress? So by this type of mindfulness, which has therapeutic effect, but also at the same time, it creates that calmness in your mind, as which is required as a preliminary practice for progressing in your spiritual journey. So that's what has been spoken of in the 36th sutra. So now the next, the 37th sutra, speaks of the stability of mind can be produced by some another practice. What is that? Vitaragasya va chittam, or by contemplating on a mind which is free from desires. So this is the thing which we do, that my God, my chosen ideal, who is as if sitting in my heart, is free from all desires. I meditate on that heart, I think on that heart. So vritti sarupyam, the vrittis sarupyam means identical vrittis changes your nature. When you can, through meditation, you can visualize something, contemplate something, culture on something, that the thing which you're culturing, that becomes your nature. Our nature is nothing but the expression of our mind. So here it is been spoken of, that's the way to calm down our mind. Take some holy person, some great person whom you revere, some saint whom you know to be perfectly non-attached, and think of his heart. Meditate on that heart. It will calm the mind. If you cannot do that, so just see, yoga is like a benevolent mother, that uh, uh, if the child somehow you cannot nourish, say, with most of the children, they won't like some of the vegetables. The mother knows how to make the child eat that vegetable. She will prepare some dish which the child likes, in which those vegetables will be hidden. And that's how the mother knows how, by hook or by crook, to make the child eat that vegetable and nourish him. Yoga is also doing that. There's varied ways. Okay, you don't like this, go for the next. You don't like this, go for the next. So here on the 38th, it is speaking of another wonderful idea. Swapna nidra jnana alambanam va. So you can calm down the mind by meditating on the knowledge that comes in dream or in sleep. So very interesting that we generally say, when anyone says, in dream I saw my chosen ideal. We say it's never false. It's true. It's never false. You know why? It's very interesting that when in the wakeful state, when we are focused, we are constantly accessing information. And when we go to sleep, whatever information you have accessed, now the processing goes on. So in our education system, we will find that some of the parents stress too much on focusing. They will ask their child to just focus on their study from morning till evening without any relaxation. That's not good. Focusing is required for accessing the information, and the relaxation is required to process those information. Sometimes we will find that some of the child has developed the habit of solving mathematics while listening to some soft music. Of course, if he's hearing some jeering rock music, it's not going to help him uh, in solving mathematics. But if it's a soft music, it can really help. Sometimes the parent may discourage, but actually, if we know the science behind it, we will encourage. Okay, it's good. What happens for solving mathematics? You have already, you know, the all the equations, everything. You have accessed the data. But now, at which step, which equation to use to process all the acquired, all the accessed information, you need your mind to be a bit relaxed. I will give you a very common example. You will find that even in Australia, till the class 12th exam, it is from the Asian background, the students excel. They are all the toppers. But what happens in the university? Suddenly you will find the moment it goes to the research, you will find now the so-called those who are coming from the Western background have excelling there. There we don't excel much. You know the same reason, because those who are from the Asian background, their our guidance is such. The mother, the father always stresses that you should be focused. That helps till the higher secondary level where you are acquiring all the information and just that you are spelling out in your examination. But when it comes to the research, you have to process. We have not developed that faculty because we have not given the child the relaxation required. There was no relaxation. It is required. So you will find many of the scientific discoveries has happened in dream. Actually, all the dreams are not scientific. Most of the dreams are trash, worthless. To give an example, what happens in the wakeful state, I have seen gold. In the wakeful state, I have seen mountain. Now, most of the processing will go wrong. In deep sleep, when the conscious mind is not there to see how the processing is going on, the gold which I have seen in the waking state may just get conjoined with the idea of the mountain, and I may see in dream a golden mountain. It's a fantasy, it's not truth. But sometimes some ideas gets fixed with some ideas which results in wonderful discovery. Just there are many discoveries. One example, when Watson and Crick were researching on DNA, they couldn't find out the structure of DNA and they were tired. It's Crick actually. He was tired. He went to sleep. In sleep, he saw a queer visualization. What's the visualization? Two snakes have coiled each other. They're embracing each other in a coiled fashion. They have coiled each other, mutually coiled each other. And then when he woke up, I said, why this queer dream I got? Has it something to do with the structure of the DNA? If you see the structure of the DNA, you will find the two strands are connected with each other, coiled around each other. From the dream, he got that idea. It was a huge leap of imagination. How it has happened? In the dream, somehow, the ideas he were accessing with the focused mind, that got chance to process, and it processed in such a way that it gave a leap in the imagination to conform to the fact and resulting in a wonderful discovery. Many discoveries, it's just one I'm saying, Most of the discoveries has happened with that type of leap in the imagination. So why we are speaking of here? So all the dreams which you have, as per the spiritual domain is concerned, is also of the similar nature. When you start living spiritual life consciously, in your day-to-day life, you're trying to think of your Ishta, you're trying to communicate with him. All these are like accessed information in your waking state. In the dream state, they get processed to create some wonderful vision. Never doubt it. Because this vision, the more you are convinced about its reality, the more it will motivate you in your spiritual journey. It enriches your experiments and motivates you to proceed further. So that way, whatever such uh, knowledge you get from the dreams, suddenly in the one day you got a wonderful dream, sublime dream. In the dream, you find your mind has calmed down in some wonderful, sublime presence. Try to visualize it in the waking state. Know it to be true and visualize it. It will give you a wonderful motivation, sincerity of purpose, and that will accelerate your progress in the spiritual journey. It gives a tremendous leap. It helps you by giving you a tremendous leap in calming down your mind. So mind in the waking state, when focused or concentrated, access information, and when relaxed or dreaming or in deep sleep, process information. It is often seen that a student is extremely focused to solve a problem, or a scientist is focused to find out a solution but fails. And then, being tired and exhausted, falls asleep and wakes up with a wonderful solution. That happens because the mind was processing all the access data in sleep. When spiritual life gets intensified, the same process happens while we are having vivid visualizations in dream, which enriches our experience and motivates us to proceed further. So we are almost coming to the end of this section of this cleansing of mind preliminary practices. Now at last, what he's saying is very interesting. What Yoga Sutra is saying. Yatha abhimata dhyanatva. If you find none of them are helping, then meditate on anything that appeals to you as good. Not on some wicked subject, not on some sensual thing. To just what anything means, suppose you went to some holy place. You are not of spiritual inclination. Suppose you went to some temple because you had to accompany someone of some of your relative who is very devoted. He wanted someone to accompany, and just unwillingly to accompany that person, you went, and you find that atmosphere very sublimating. Don't allow the mind to forget about it. If you find that no other practice is helping you, why not sit down and just think you're again in the shrine, again in that atmosphere and that sublime environment in which you are uh, present without any actually preparations. You have never wanted to be there. It just happened by chance. It is like a God's gift that suddenly that bliss, that peace you enjoy. Why not visualize it? You went to some holy place, some pilgrimage, and there you found that your mind was automatically calmed down. That environment, that sublime atmosphere, spiritually enthralled atmosphere, has enabled you to calm down your mind. Why not visualize those things? Or while walking during the morning walk, the scenery, the wonderful scenery, sublime scenic beauty, calm down your mind. Why not visualize that? So all those things, anything which appeals to you as good, as sublime, you can use them as a visualization. That don't just allow that event to be over once you have experienced it. It is there in your psyche. As you have liked it, it is deep there in your psyche. Bring it back as memory and visualize it, and that will calm down your mind. So, yatha abhimata dhyanatva. So, on anything that appeals you as good, So it doesn't mean any wicked subject, but anything good and sublime, like memory of a holy place or sublime scenery or any sublime idea. For it's not the object of meditation, but our affinity towards the object of meditation that ascertains the quality of meditation. So I need not have to force myself to meditate on something. Whatever I like, that affinity will automatically make my meditation qualitative because of the affinity. Just the way the mother does not have to meditate on the child, the affinity makes her think of the child spontaneously. Similarly, whatever things you are affiliated to, you have affinity towards, the meditation becomes more and more spontaneous. So don't force. If you don't like the idea of God, you can take any beautiful scenery. On that also you can meditate. See how uh, broad this yoga is, how universal it is. Anything. The goal is to bring the peace of mind, to bring the tranquility of mind. And you can adopt any of this method. So when you have to certain extent become adept in one type of meditation, then what will happen? That's the conclusion, the last sutra we speak. Then you can meditate. Then you can meditate on anything. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, that if you can cook well, you can meditate well. Why? For cooking well, you need a lot of concentration. So you have developed the faculty of concentration, of meditation by cooking. Now, this faculty of concentration now can be easily used to concentrate on God. That's why we find when Sri Ramakrishna became perfect, because became spiritually realized in one way of practice. For 12 years, he went on practicing various paths. And all those, all those paths, realization came in 3 days. He took 3 days to go to the realization for each path. So many things he practiced, but it required not more than 3 days to uh, become an adept in a particular type of meditation. How was it possible? Because he has already equipped his mind with a particular type of meditation. Now it becomes easy. So now once you become adept in meditation in this world, from something minutely small to something magnanimous, very big, whatever you concentrate your mind you will find is in your control. You can immediately concentrate your mind. With that, this section ends. The 40th sutra says that paramanu parama mahattvanta asya vashikara. When the mind develops the power of stabilizing from something minute, paramanu, to something that is great, there's mahattvanta, there's mahat, which is something very great. In anything you can now meditate, then the mind is under your control. So after equipping you with this cleansing process of the mind, now the Yoga Sutra will enter into the details of the Samadhi, which we have already studied, all those process of Samadhi. Now we won't repeat for the time being. At the last, when we have a very, a bird's eye view of the entire Yoga Sutra, then again we will summarize that in short. So now, after this, we will go to the second chapter, where after speaking of these preliminary practices, now the sadhana, the detailed spiritual practice, step by step, will be dealt with in the second chapter. That's why the second chapter is named as Sadhana Pada, the practice. So that chapter we will enter from the commencing class. With this, we stop our discussion today.
Namaskar, Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Good night.
Hariom Swamiji. I have a question, Swamiji. I'm not sure.
Please. Yeah.
You may have covered it. You know how you said this, like renunciation and being lazy, they're entirely opposite to each other.
Yeah.
In both we feel same, but it's entirely opposite ends. So what I'm wondering is, when we disjoin, like when we start seeing our body as an object, we start disjoining from our body pains or whatever it is. Slowly, if we move towards when we see our mind or the thoughts also as, if we start objectifying them also, like sort of thoughtless state, if I'm right.
It's not thoughtless. You're objectifying. You are,
we are seeing the thoughts, we are becoming aware of it, but we don't personally attach to it. So
yeah.
are we going on the right path, or we have taken already the wrong path?
No, it depends on what type of meditation you are practicing. If you are practicing the meditation on this focused meditation, then of course you will try to disjoin yourself from the pain and keep your mind on the object of meditation. That's a different type. And if you are practicing mindfulness, then the practice becomes different. There is no particular focus. Yes, if the body is having some pain, I focus my mind on the pain, but at the same time, I don't react. I won't move my legs. Let my focus my mind there. So what type of meditation you're practicing? If you're practicing focus meditation, then of course I have to bring back my mind from the pain and keep it in the object of meditation. And if it is mindfulness, then of course there is no question of focus. I have to keep it concentrated on the pain without reacting. But to integrate these two, it's better always to practice mindfulness at the beginning so that you develop some sort of stability. Because if you start at the beginning with the focus, then what happens? A little pain will distract you so much you cannot continue. You develop perseverance through mindfulness to a certain extent so that the pain doesn't disturb you. So now your focus will become qualitative. You can continue with the focus for long. So if we can integrate this two, then we can really get a much better result.
Okay. Thank you, Swamiji. So during the day, sorry, I'm just clarifying a little bit more. During our daily activities, day-to-day activities, whatever thoughts or whatever process, I'm not sitting in a meditation, but whatever comes, if I can see them, if I can objectify those thoughts,
Yes.
is this the right path, or
It's,
I'm...
of course, that's because when I am working at that time, focused meditation is almost impossible, but I can be mindful when I am doing my day-to-day activities at each and every step, not to react.
Yes.
At the very first instance, I don't react. I give it a thought. Even if I have to react, the reaction will be like the hissing of a snake, not biting. So there also you will find your emotion is not attached. Just to save yourself, that you're hissing to protect yourself, but you're not biting, you're not throwing the poison. So first you give a thought. If you find there is no need of hissing, don't hiss. If there's a need for hissing, don't be aware of the fact that I don't throw the poison because it is going to disturb me. Just to protect myself, I am hissing. So that is also actually trying to get rid of all reactions that when you're trying to hiss. So of course, that's the only way when you are in your working, when you are busy with your day-to-day activities, then you can not think of focus, of course.
Yes, so that's where I was confused. Thank you, Swamiji.
Yeah. Namaskar.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Swamiji.
Hari
Pranam,
Om.
Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Namaskar, Swamiji. Pranam, Swamiji.
Namaskar.